August 1944. Normandy was behind them, but the war was far from over. The fields of France had turned into steel graveyards, burning husks of tanks strewn across hedgerows and roads. American tankers were pushing east through northern France, bracing for the brutal armor duels that awaited in the forests and villages ahead. And among them, Captain Henry Grayson stood tall in the hatch of his lead Sherman, binoculars in hand, scanning the frozen tree line of a village just outside Mortain. He commanded a company of M4A3E8 Shermans, newer, faster, and crucially, safer. Grayson and his men didn't know it at the time, but they were part of a quiet revolution, one that would change how tank crews fought, and more importantly, how many of them lived. For months, American Shermans had been plagued by a deadly nickname whispered among soldiers, Ronsons, because they'd light up every time. A penetrating hit from a German 75mm or 88mm gun often meant instant death, not just because of the impact, but because of what happened after. The shells igniting the tank's own ammunition inside, turning it into a fireball. But now something had changed. As Grayson's Shermans rolled cautiously through the snow-covered town, remnants of a German panzer division lay scattered. Turrets blown off Tiger tanks, tracks ripped from Panzer IVs. His tanks had taken hits in recent battles, but something was different this time. The last engagement? One Sherman took a direct side hit, and instead of erupting in flames, the crew bailed out, alive. Shaken, bruised, but alive. The Germans were stunned. They watched, dumbfounded, as the Sherman didn't explode. No towering inferno, no ammunition cooking off, just smoke, sparks, and then silence. What the Germans didn't know, what even many American soldiers didn't know, was that newer Sherman models had quietly begun using a technological change that saved countless lives. Wet ammo storage. It sounded simple. Instead of storing shells in exposed racks, where a single hit could trigger a chain reaction, the ammunition was now housed in compartments surrounded by a water glycol mix. This system absorbed heat and drastically reduced the chances of fire when the armor was breached. The M4A3E8, the model Captain Grayson commanded, came equipped with this feature. It didn't make them invincible, but it gave them a fighting chance. German gunners had grown overconfident. In early 1944, they fired on Shermans, knowing full well what would happen next. Boom, fire, screaming crew, dead tank. But by August, those assumptions were starting to falter. German officers reported cases of multiple confirmed hits on Shermans, solid flank shots, even ammo rack penetrations that didn't result in fires. One Panther crewman recounted how they watched a Sherman take a direct hit, smoke pouring out, and yet, within minutes, it limped away, still mobile. Back at his command tank, Captain Grayson noticed the shift in morale. His men weren't as afraid to charge forward. They believed in their machines again. He remembered vividly the moment after a tank in his platoon took a hit outside of Ranchis. The crew popped the hatch and scrambled out. Expecting the worst, they hit the ground and waited for the detonation that never came. "Something's different," his gunner had said. "That should have lit up like the 4th of July. It didn't. That was the wet stowage at work. Even the Germans started to whisper about fireproof Shermans. They assumed it was superstition at first, some trick or new armor plating. In truth, it was just smart engineering. Quiet, uncelebrated, but battlefield changing. As snow fell gently across the French countryside, Grayson raised his hand, halting the column. Smoke curled in the distance from a burning farmhouse. Recon had reported a jagged Panther positioned just beyond the ridge. He ordered his company into a spread formation, 2 tanks flanking left, 1 cutting through the orchard. His command tank would push straight up the middle, drawing fire. The gamble? If they got hit, the armor wouldn't save them, but the ammo storage might. A moment later, the ridge erupted with fire. A shell screamed across the sky, slamming into the left Sherman. It rocked violently, tracks grinding to a halt. Grayson's heart sank. Then, to his disbelief, the crew began climbing out. No fire, no explosion. They were shaken, but alive. His radio operator gasped, "They're walking! They're actually walking away!" Grayson called in artillery, and minutes later, the jagged Panther was a smoking ruin. The town was theirs, but more importantly, his men were alive. That night, around a campfire, one of the crewmen from the hit tank said, "It's that new storage system, right? That wet ammo thing." Grayson nodded slowly. "Saved your life," he replied. "History books often talk about the big picture, the invasions, the generals, the strategy. But the real difference is often made in the small details. A better weld, a safer fuel line, or in this case, a tank that doesn't explode when it's hit." By the time American forces reached the German border in late '44, the legend of the unburnable Sherman had begun to spread. Not invincible, but no longer a guaranteed death trap. And for thousands of young tankers, that meant everything. Wars aren't just won by strategy, they're won by survival. And sometimes the quietest change, hidden beneath steel and silence, makes the loudest impact on history. Before we end this story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear. If this story touched you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let us know how you feel in the comment.